anything a human does as a believer, you are criticized for your ikhlas. All of our worship, all of our dealings, all of our ibadah, all of our prayers, all of our hajj and umrah, everything is based on our intentions. To a certain degree, in the madhab of Imam Shafi'i, particularly Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad, without making intention for wudu, your wudu is incorrect. You have to have intention for wudu. So this is the foundation, of our worship. Without this, no act, irrespective of what level, of how much of amount of sacrifice a person can be shedding his blood, giving his wealth, sacrificing his time, but if it's not done for the right motive, it has done nothing but wasted his entire life and wealth. A person can give hundreds and thousands of dollars without the right intention. This money has not been accumulated in the reward that is saved in the future, in akhirah. So this is why this quality of ikhlas is the core of inner motivation. If you are coming to a program, if you're praying, whatever you do, if you're doing it for the sake of Allah only, whether there are people there, whether people appreciate you, whether you are recognized, whether you feel good about it or not, you will continue and continue to do it. For example, you started doing tahajjud. A time will come in your life where you will find it difficult to pray. But because you're sincere about it, you will continue to pray. You will continue. Ikhlas gives the person istiqamah, gives him sincerity. Ikhlas gives him steadfastness. Ikhlas gives a person, in his actions, humbleness. If a person continues to do a lot of good deeds without sincerity, this worship will build inside of this person's character arrogance, because people are appraising him. But if in return, if this person has the inner quality of sincerity, the praises of people will not give him this inflation and this ego boost. He won't get affected. So ikhlas is a key component of any successful venture. Any successful venture. It was never based on money. It was never based on numbers. It was never based on support, economical, financial, material. It was never based on that. The Prophet ﷺ started his mission at a very simple and humble manner, which was sincere. Any author that's written a book and was sincere about writing it, God accepted it. God made it flourish. For example, Imam Malik's Muwatta. Imam Malik is a great scholar. Imam Malik wrote when he was writing his Muwatta, Harun Rashid told him and another scholar that we need a book that can be the law of the state. We need a fiqh, hadith book that can be the law in court. Through this we'll make our decisions. We need you to write something. The first book that was compiled in the context of fiqh was Muwatta Imam Malik. It was his theology, it was his opinion of how prayer should be made, how dealing should be conducted, all of this. He put this book together, and while he was teaching, and he was a very wealthy person, every lesson he would teach, he would wear a new cloak, and and the Persians and the Arabs, especially if you go back to like the Persian and the Afghanis, they have these, they're known for two things. They're known for their sheets and they're known for their rugs. They're hand stitched and they're very, very expensive, even in those days. So Imam Malik would wear these Persian clothes and sheets, especially in winter. They would cover themselves, and it was hundreds of dirhams and dinars. Every single day, he would give the lesson and gift it to a student. He would give it away. Basically, he was giving charity after every class. Someone in the middle of one of the lectures, one of the students came up to Imam Malik, concerned, sincerely said, Ya Shaykh, the other scholar, so two scholars were given the responsibility to write a book. The other scholar that was also given the task of writing a book that could be the order of the time and the era, he's completed it and it's out for publishing. We are requesting and informing you that you have to expedite your writing and do it quicker so we can have this challenge that you have. it would you can exceed also. Your name can be famous. So now Malik wasn't a scholar that was concerned about this. He looked down, he lifted his finger, and he said one simple sentence, and it hits the nail on the head. So man kana lillahi fahuwa baqi. Anything and anyone that does anything for the sake of Allah, that will remain forever. Why? كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. Everything will perish. Anything that you did for the sake of someone else will perish. Anything that you did for the sake of Allah will remain. Even in this world, it will have a long-lasting effect in the legacy. It will outlive you. And it will outlive your era till today. And the Muwatta was taught to me in Toronto. And the Muwatta is part of the curriculum in Berkeley, in Zaytuna. Muwatta is taught in Tunis. The Muwatta is taught in Azhar. The Muwatta is taught in Medina. So you have this book that was written, 1,300 years back, but so much acceptance. Translated into 40 languages, probably more. What I'm trying to stress here is that anything that's done, any mission, any organization, any masjid, any school that's built or structured on the basis of sincerity, it remains. There are two things for a successful venture. Two things for an action to be accepted. Number one, it needs to be sincere. And number two, it needs to be done the right way. So these are the two, we have to write this down. Two things are the ingredients of a successful venture or an action that is accepted. What do you define amalan salihah? That ayah that I read, فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. It has to be done the right way. You can, for example, salah. You can be sincere about it, but you're praying the wrong way. It won't get accepted. You understand? You're spending money sincerely, but you're spending it in the wrong place. You're supporting the wrong organization. They will take this and use it against Muslims. So the direction that you are helping, the way it's done, and the motives it's done, these are the two ingredients of success. Like a person wants to plant a tree, to give shade, fruits, So he puts it in the middle of the road. His intention was sincere, it was innocent, but his intention was sincere, but it was the wrong place. So things have to be done the right way, with the right intention. These two ingredients these will reap in the future the right results. Let's get to ikhlas. Like I said right now in the introduction, ikhlas is the foundation of everything. In the Quran, there's a surah called Al-Ikhlas, right? It's called ikhlas for two reasons. Number one, the surah, it identifies and it expresses the oneness of Allah and the purity of Allah. Allah is قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Allah did not give birth to anyone, no one gave birth to Allah, and there's no one equal to Allah. He's one and alone. So you have in there the surah that if a person has this sickness, which would be done in implementation, but I'll mention it now. One of the implementation of the class would be, is that if a person struggles with sincerity, he will be recommended to read Surah Ikhlas over and over. Read it all the time. And the reward of reading Surah Ikhlas once is equal to reading the Quran. Reading it once is equal to reading the Quran 1/3. And read it 3 times is equal to reading the Quran complete reward. كَأَنَّمَا قَرَأَ ثُلُثُ الْقُرْآنِ. So that's one reason. It identifies the complete purity, taqaddus of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 2, the person who recites Surah Ikhlas, he is proclaiming his sincerity to Allah. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, this man, he leads us in prayer, and he continues to read Qul Huwallahu Ahad in Salah. Wouldn't we love it if the Imam always read Qul Huwallahu Ahad in all the Salah, right? And he always reads Qul Huwallahu Ahad. And they come to the Prophet ﷺ because they want to hear more. And one narration was, he would read a surah, and at the end of the surah, he would read some page in the Quran, but he will not go into ruku before he reads Qul Huwallahu Ahad. Like he has to read Qul Huwallahu Ahad in every salah. So this was brought to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ didn't judge him. The Prophet ﷺ asked him why he recites Qul Huwallahu Ahad. The Nabi replied, Ya Surah, I love this surah. This surah is so dear to me because these people were coming out of shirk, right? So this surah hit the heart. So I love this surah. The Prophet ﷺ, if you love, for the love of this surah, Allah loves you also. For the love of this surah, Allah loves you also. Just for loving us. One of the smallest surah in the Quran, He loved it. Allah loves him also. No? So this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually named a surah in the Quran, Surah Al-Ikhlas. And there are many definitions of Ikhlas. There's a definition that we've written here, is to do everything internally, externally, while only desiring the pleasure of God. Everything that we do, from the smallest to the greatest, everything that we do should be done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not to forget the eyes of the people and whether they view your deeds or not. Whether people are watching you or not, that's something that you're not supposed to consider. Everything is supposed to be done for the sake of Allah. The only thing on your mind is that God is watching you. All the time. It's done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in the Quran, in Surah Nahl, Allah describes milk, and He uses the word ikhlas, khalisan. Min bayni farthin wa damin khalisan sa'igan lisharibin. This is very deep. Allah says that Allah brings milk between filth and blood, and there's an artery that comes that brings pure milk. And when this milk is, taken out from the udders of the animal, it's pure. There is no contamination or smell, odor, or filth from the blood, neither from the farq, which is the dump of the animal's filth. All of this is done with fine detail, and the milk comes, and everything we almost consume has dairy product. The chocolates, the ice creams, So you can imagine how detailed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has perfection brought this milk to this world. Like this, let's say that milk which has nothing diluted with, from smell, from taste, it's pure, it's khalis, it's pure. Equally, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants an action that's done by a human sincerely and purely for the sake of Allah. It can't have anything. It can't have pleasing someone, doing it for someone. If I don't do it, people are going to say something. Fudail ibn Iyad rahimahullah says, تَرْكُ الْعَمَلِ لِلنَّاسِ رِيَا. Check this out. He says, to leave an action for the people is called riya. It's called showing off. Like you're doing it, leaving an action for the sake of people is riya. وَالْعَمَلِ لِلنَّاسِ shirk. And to do it for people is associating partners to Allah. Then what do we do? He says you have to do it between. A time will come that you'll be like, people are watching, they might think I'm doing this for their sake. Then you should do it. If you're doing something, you're giving charity, and people are there, don't stop yourself. Give it. But do it for the sake of Allah. Do it for the sake of Allah. Don't say, oh, people are going to say this. No. If you're concerned with what people are saying, then you need to, shape yourself. Maybe you're not sincere. So doing it for the sake of people is riyah. Leaving it for the sake of people is riyah. And doing it for the sake of people is shirk. This is Fudail ibn Iyad, who's a great, great scholar of Makkah and Medina. Khasa al-Makkah. So this brings me back to the point that it has to be pure like milk. It can only be done khalisan. Khalisan liwajhillah. When we say in Arabic khalas or khalas, we're finished, we're done. That statement has come also from ikhlas. Of course, ikhlas is from bab if'al. Would you say, I'm done my work, I'm done my project? Similarly, when a person does an action, he does it completely, and it's done completely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept anything that's not done for His sake. And the hadith that we read very nicely, very clearly here, is in Allah la yanzuru ila suwarikum wa la ila ajsamikum. People look, this is why it's so important. People look at your appearance. People look at your face. People look at what you do, your actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at your action. Allah looks at your appearance, but that's not the main focus. In Allah la yanzuru ila suwarikum doesn't mean Allah doesn't see you. He sees you. He sees you. But the main focus is the heart. Why are you doing this? And if it's correct, you will continue to do it till you die. And the scholars say, if we die and we're able to do one salah completely solely for the pleasure of Allah, it's enough for our salvation. Just one prayer. The scholars say the hardest quality to attain is sincerity. This is the most difficult thing. Even great scholars struggle. And actually they struggle even more because they're in the spotlight. Many times I question myself. I'll be at an event and watching this. And my question is to myself, why am I here? Is it for fame? You have thousands of people that will listen to you. You have 1,000 people that will ask you questions. You want to financially benefit from people. You want morally benefit. You want followers. What do you want? This is why the day of judgment is so dangerous for people like this. And Allah say, one and all. On the day of judgment, many people will come with a lot of followers. They won't be celebrities in this world. They were considered to be the people. But they will on the day of judgment, when things are revealed or unveiled in front of them, they will come out to be the biggest criminals because they were insincere. And there will be many people in the world that we didn't even know of. We never even heard of. They were in our community, but we never respected them. They were hidden gems. But when they will come on the day of judgment, they will have the loftiest lots and the highest ranks and the closest places and palaces to the Prophet ﷺ because of the sincerity. There are so many people in the Prophet ﷺ. You look at them, they look very simple. Ash'ar, Azbar, their hair is disheveled, their clothes are dust, full of dust. They're rejected. But if they were to pray to Allah, Allah would accept them. And the cool thing about sincerity is, this is a beautiful hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, if you continue to do something for the sake of Allah, whether people recognize it or not, one day Allah will make it, and Allah will make this thing flourish, and you will get reward for it in this dunya and after. The Prophet ﷺ said, لو أن رجلا عمل عملا في قوة لا باب لها ولا صخر. If a person does an action, if a person does an action hidden in the cave, nobody knows about it. Somehow Allah will expose His good to the people. Sometimes when Allah hides mistakes, but when some people do good deeds and they keep on hiding it, Allah exposes it. And then when people find out that this person is doing all of this, they will respect him more. And at times in the past, how we struggle to, the struggle word would be understatement. But how we exaggerate in the things that we do. And we struggle to expose them. Our qualities, I've done this, and we post it on social media, and I've been here. And we like to show off, like we say our family goes on vacation to the Bahamas. We tell everybody. We like the world to know that we're having fun. And sometimes in the heart, we're actually not having fun. We're just in a very depressed state. But you want people to know. So the world thinks you're having fun, but you're really depressed inside. And the funny part about it is people think you're enjoying life. That makes you even more depressed. But you're not really enjoying life. Part of it because we're asking people to give us an evil eye. That's a different discussion for another day. But how we struggle to show off? The pious predecessors struggle to hide their good. They used to hide it. They don't tell people. If somebody found them to giving charity at night, they would make a deal. You saw me last night, please don't tell anyone. It's like you busted someone doing something haram. Don't tell my parents. That's how these pious people would tell their friends. If someone was in Medina, I give you money or charity to the poor people outside Medina, the people would tell them, don't talk about it. Only on the death of these people, it was discovered that these were the people that were supporting this family. For example, Sa'id ibn Musayyib, when he passed away, when they were washing his body, they saw marks of ropes on his back. They're like, why does he have marks of ropes on his back, right? And who was this guy? I mean, he wasn't a labor worker, just so you can understand the situation. If you don't know Sayyid Hussein, for a brief summary of his life, he was the scholar of Medina before Imam Malik. And for 40 years, he says himself, the Imam called Adhan in the masjid, and before he called Adhan, I was in the masjid. He was a scholar, the Muhaddith of Medina. He said, I now رأيت قفا رجل في حياتي. Or he says in one narration, ما رأيت القفرات في الصلاة 20 سنة. I did not see the back of a neck of a human in salah for 20 years, which means he always prayed in the first row. Or he was the imam. That's how religious and influential this person was. I'm saving his story for another day. When he died, they noticed, marks on his back. So they asked his wife, like, why are these marks on your husband's back? Right? So the wife said that my husband, every night, when everyone would go to sleep, he would take food, he would take barley, he would take wheat, and he would take it and drop it to the houses of the poor people of Medina. That's what he would do. Umar bin Khattab used to do this. When everyone was sleeping at night, Umar bin Khattab would go as a Khalifa, as a leader of the believers, and he would serve mankind. Great people would do this. In this community, in my small, short experience around America, I have met such people. Especially when I fundraise. I honestly experienced. I was in Philadelphia. I got there for a project, and my Jummah target was around $40,000, right? For Jummah khutbah. And I didn't know, someone had planned my trip to the Pennsylvania area, but this trip was over the bridge in New Jersey. And I've never been to this masjid. When I get there, I was like, man, this is a very simple masjid. It's like a church. I was like, these guys are lucky to give me even 5,000. And I started judging them, which was wrong, right? So I came in, and I'm like, I can't ask these people 40,000. They're going to think I'm crazy, right? And we have a down payment for our school project. So I said, what should I do? I said, I make 10,000 target here, and Allah will help the rest later. Let's get 10,000, right? But so I did the khutbah and stuff, and I said, listen, our project, our due payment on Monday is 40,000, and I don't want to ask you guys more than what you guys, can afford to pay. Allah knows how much you can pay, but this 10,000 will be great, and then we can figure out the rest later. And I said something like this, and after I was done, standing with a box and flyers, people came, gave their $20, $200 checks and stuff. And it wasn't like a physician community. It was like taxi drivers, labor workers, middle class people. And this happened 2 years ago. This person comes up to me, he was from India or Pakistan, grabs my hand. He says to me a couple of things. He says, number one, you are an imam in a masjid. I figured. I said, yes. He says, I don't think you should waste your time fundraising for an organization. You have a greater job. That's what you're doing is something we should do. I'm going to humbly request that you go back to your community and I'm going to take care of it. I said, excuse me? He says, I'm going to take care of it. I said, you mean take care of what? He says, whatever the cost is. I said, do you mean 10? Do you mean 40? He said, I'm going to take care of 40. Okay, fine. And he said, give me your information and stuff. So I gave my information, took my information. So after, we were just calculating, and I was paying my sunnah, and it was like around 3:20 by now, 3:30. He called me like 6 times, left messages. He's like, the check is in my office. My secretary is waiting for you. Who do you have to check to? So I finished it. He called me. Usually when you try to take a pledge from someone, you have to follow them. This person contacts me, and I go to his office, and he left. So his nephew, who was the secretary of the office, he was there. He said, what do I write the check on? So I gave him the name of the institute. He gave me the $40,000 check. I left the office. I called him, and I said, I want to thank you, Jazakumullah khair. I don't know how to repay you. Inshallah, Allah will repay you in akhir. He says, I only have one request. One request. He said, I don't want nothing from you. And I don't even know his name, personally. I don't even know his name. I don't know if I'm ever going to see him again. So I just have one request. Please, I'm not going to give you my name. It was from his business. But please make dua for me and tell your mother. Your mother, because she raised a scholar in this country, I find that to be a miracle. Please, when you go back, tell your mom that there's a human in New Jersey that's wishing for your prayers. That's all I ask you to do. That's all. I've gone to places in fundraisers. I went to Atlanta. A mother wrote me a lady, a female, at Fajr Salah, Halaqa. She wrote me a $10,000 check. And when she wrote a letter to me. And in that letter, she was crying about her son's situation and her daughter's situation because they were far away from Deen. In the bottom of the letter, she said, just do me a favor. When you go home, make your mom read this letter so she can pray for my children. Like, not me, I'll pray for you. And she's like, please. And I took it to my mom. My mom read the letter, she was crying. You know? People are, in this community, every fundraiser, someone's come up to me and said, 10,000. I was like, you should have asked me, I made dua for you to meet Allah with the whole 9 yards. I said, Sheikh, please. Please. Here, I got done, the guy came to me, 25,000. Of course, we'll find out whose name it is, and they're going to receive. But people are they're sincere. And there are always going to be people like this. And all these people, across the world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the effort of deen. These big organizations like ICNA, all these people, whether they have, whatever we say about them today, they have mistakes, they're not perfect, alhamdulillah, they're doing something. People who founded these organizations in the 80s and the 70s, you have to imagine how sincere they are. So much opposition from the government, and they're still doing it. I can imagine there are times they had no money, but they were able to do it. And that's the challenges that we will have. When you're sincere, Allah will give you so much reward. This is why the statement goes in Torah. It's written, "Man arad wajh." Anyone that does any amal, any action for my, Allah says in Qudsi, anyone that does an action for my sake, فَقَلِيلُهُ كَثِيرٌ. Even something small is rewarded greatly. وَمَنْ أَرَادَ بِغَيْرِ. Anyone that does something for the sake of someone else, فَكَثِيرُهُ قَلِيلٌ. Even if they do so much, it has no reward. So this is very important. Shaddad bin Awf radiallahu anhu was sitting and he was crying. A man came to Shaddad bin Awf radiallahu anhu, مَا يُبْكِيكَ يَا Shaddad? Why are you crying? He says, شَيْئًا سَمِعْتُ مِنْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فَذَكَرْتُ فَأَبْكَانِ. Something that I heard the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم and I remembered it and I started crying. He says, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إن أخذ ما أخاف على أمتي الشرك والشهوة الخفي. The thing that I fear about my ummah the most is shirk, associating partners with God, and hidden desires. I said to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, يا رسول أتشرك أمتك من بعدك? Do you think your ummah, your nation, will associate partners with Allah after you've done all this great work? The Prophet ﷺ said, قال نعم. Of course. إنهم لا يعبدون شمسا ولا قمرا ولا حجرا إنما ولكن يراؤون الناس بأعمالهم. Yes, they will not worship the sun, they will not worship the moon, they won't worship the stones and the idols, but they will show off in their actions, and that will destroy their reward. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, الشهوة الخفي, hidden desires. And the Prophet ﷺ, أن يصبح الرجل صائما أن يصبح أحدهم صائما. One of you wake up in the morning with the intention of fasting, they will continue to fast. فتعرض عليه شهوة من شهواته فيترك صومه. He wake up or she wake up in the morning with the intention he should be fasting, but the desire of eating or drinking or some sexual relationship will come into the person's heart and mind, and this person will break the fast for a desire. This is something lawful for something that he's committed to. Imagine breaking a fast for something that's unlawful. I'm going deeper than this. You broke a fast because you ate on purpose, which is a big mistake. You have to repent. You have to do the penalty. You have to feed 60 people a fast 2 months straight. But imagine breaking the fast, doing something which is forbidden. The sin of that. This is why these small things, what I'm talking about today, of ikhlas, are the key components of any successful venture or human being in the world. This is why Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Imam Tirmidhi, these great scholars of this hadith, the first hadith they put in their book is a hadith of niyyah. إنما الأعمال عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما الأعمال بالنيات. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. All actions are based on intentions. Through just this hadith, Imam Nawawi has put almost 2 volumes together just talking about this hadith. The virtues, the laws. He put more than 70 rulings of jurisprudence from niyyah. That's how important ikhlas is. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. Then he says, وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. Everyone will be based on their intentions. فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَةُهُ. Oh wow, this is Muharram, right? This is the month that the Prophet did Hijrah. This is the beginning of the new year, right? فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Anyone that migrated for the sake of Allah, towards Allah, to the Prophet ﷺ, فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. meaning their reward is from Allah and His Rasul. They did migrate to Allah and His Rasul. وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِلدُّنْيَا. Anyone that migrated for dunya. Hold on. You're leaving everything. Why would you migrate for dunya? Then the hadith goes in detail. From the dunya, أو إمرأة ينكحها, or for the intention of getting married in Medina, فَهِجْرَةُ إِلَى مَا هَجَرَ إِلَيْهِ, he will get the reward equally for what they made intention for. For example, a man from Makkah who's leaving everything and going to Medina with the Prophet, but makes his intention, I'm going to Medina because I heard the women in Medina are beautiful, I want to get married in Medina, gets no reward for hijrah. Though he sacrificed everything. He gets the reward for getting married. If you come there with the intention to migrate for the sake of Allah and Rasul, and you did propose there, you did a proposal, you get married, that's secondary. But your primary intention was to come to hijrah. This is why the Quran says, وَمَنْ يُهَاجِرْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ يَجِدْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُرَاغَمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَعًا وَمَنْ يَخْرُجْ مِنْ بَيْتِهِ مُهَاجِرًا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Many people will leave their house for the sake of Allah, and they will never make it to Medina. ثُمَّ يُدْرِكُ الْمَوْتِ, and they die on the way. Quran says, فَقَدْ وَقَعَ أَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. It is upon Allah to give them the reward. They will never be considered a muhajir because they probably died in Makkah. You understand? And that name, muhajir, it's such a powerful laqab, identification that they have. Muhajir and Ansar. In the Khilafah, always stayed in the Muhajirin, never went to the Ansar. The ability, the honor to be a muhajir was something they cherished. So imagine someone that wanted to be a muhajir but died on the way. Allah says, maybe you don't categorize them as a muhajir, I will give them the reward because they made the intention. Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ says, من أتى فراشه وهو ينوي أن يقوم من الليل فغلبته عيناه حتى أصبح كتب له ما نوى وكان نومه صدقة عليه من ربه عز وجل. Hadith Tirmidhi. So a person goes to sleep with his intention, I'm going to wake up at tahajjud. Okay? I'm going to wake up at tahajjud. Somehow, for some reason, he's overwhelmed with sleep. His eyes don't open, her eyes don't open, and she sleeps all the way till Fajr, not through Fajr, till Fajr, right? Waits till the Fajr and you're like, oh man, I missed my tahajjud. This person gets the reward for tahajjud, and that sleep that this person got is charity and a gift from Allah as a sadaqah. فَكَانَ نَوْمُهُ صَدَقَةٌ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ رَبِّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Subhanallah. This deen is so great that just for making an intention, Allah gives you reward. The hadith of the Prophet Sahih, مَنْ هَمَّ بِحَسَنَةٍ فَلَمْ يَعْمَلْهَا كُتِبَ لَهُ حَسَنَةً كَامِلَةً. Anyone that makes the intention to do a good action and is not able to do it, will get full reward for it. And if they're able to do the reward, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them reward 1 to 70 to 700 إلى 700 ضعفا إلى أضعاف كثيرة, and it will be multiplied even more and more just for doing it once for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aisha radiallahu anha came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Aisha radiallahu anha زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سألت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن هذه الآية. I asked the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم the interpretation of this ayah. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ راجعون. I asked the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, what do you say about this ayah? That on the day of judgment, there will be people. Ayah says, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ, they will be brought to Allah. وَقُلُوبُهُمْ, and the wow is haliyah, for those who know grammar. It's in the condition, these people will be brought to Allah, and their hearts will be trembling with fear. وَجِلَةٌ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ راجعون, and they will return to Allah. So Aisha radiallahu anha asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أَهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُشْرِكُونَ وَيَشْرَبُونَ وَيَزْنُونَ? Are they in fear because they used to drink and party and do zina and steal? Is this the reason why they're in fear? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لا يا بنت صديق. No. What are you talking about? هُمُ الَّذِينَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. These were those people who were the first people to come to the masjid, the first people to give charity, the first people to stand up for Halaqa, come to a Halaqa. These were those people who encouraged others to do good. They were the first people to do good. وَيَخَافُونَ أَنْ لَا يُقْبَلْ عَمَلُهُم. But they had one problem, and that's the reason they're in fear today. They fear that on the day of judgment, their actions will not be accepted. This is why they're in fear that I've done all of this, and all this got wasted. Imagine investing all your money, and then waking up in the morning and all your investment is lost. That will be the condition of the person who doesn't do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So doing everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Share one more hadith of the Prophet, which is a very dangerous hadith. But it would just like, it should give us a little shiver, but also give us the mindset of making everything correct. This topic is, some of us might be like going over our heads, but this topic is so critical that if we can conquer this problem today, when there will be more eyes on us and we'll be more accountable, it'll be easier for us to be sincere. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ta'awwadu min jubb al-huzn." I ask you to ask Allah refuge from jubb al-huzn. The Sahaba said, "Wa ma jubb al-huzn?" Sahaba said, "What is jubb al-huzn?" قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم واد في جهنم يتعوض به 100 مرة. It's a valley in Jahannam that Jahannam seeks refuge from this valley 100 times a day. It's a valley in Jahannam. It seeks refuge from Allah. Oh Allah, oh Jahannam says to Allah, oh Allah, please detach this valley from me because it's blazing me. Can you imagine how dangerous this place is? Then the Sahaba says to Yasur, قَالُوا وَمَنْ يَدْخُلُهُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Who will be thrown into this valley? Prophet ﷺ did not say the thugs, the drink, the alcoholic, the fornicators. He did not say those who miss salah. When we think of bad people, we think of people who don't pray and who drink and who don't wear hijab. Yeah, their action is to be criticized. I agree. But you know what the Prophet ﷺ is saying here? It's so frightening for someone like who is in this field. He says, Al-Qurra are those people. Al-Mura'una bi-a'mal. Those people who learn the Quran, who learn the deen, the scholars of the deen, who show off with their knowledge, and they show off with the Quran and the recitation. These people will be thrown headfirst into this valley that seeks refuge from Allah over 100 times a day. Man, when I read this hadith in Tirmidhi, I was like, whoa. And there's tons of hadiths like this. So my brothers and sisters, what are you doing? And who are you doing this for? If you're doing nothing, right? I'm not saying you're safe. You should do something for the sake of Allah. At least make the intention. Half of the action is the intention. Just make the intention. If you make the intention, inshallah, I will be here for a joint session this Friday, which is tomorrow, right? And if you're not able to make it, you get the reward for coming. You get the reward for every step that you will get in Hasan. So my friends and my sisters and brothers here, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this deen. It's very precious. This is what the kalima is called kalimatul ikhlas. You're saying la ilaha illallah, you do not only negate anyone to worship other than Allah, you negate anyone associated in any worship, whether it means in aqidah, in belief, or whether it means in motives. You're not doing it for anyone. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dislikes. That person who does anything for the sake of someone else. Just how? A man will come on the day of judgment. He say, oh, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Allah's going to say to this person, really? Did you do it for my sake? He's going to say, yeah. He says, no, you did it for the sake of the community. You did it for the sake of this person. Then Allah will say to this person, utlub al-ajr minhum. Go and take the reward from them. Meaning, Allah will criticize them by saying, if they could reward you, they would reward you, but they're rewarding themselves. They can't help themselves. How are they going to reward you? So everything has to be done for the sake of Allah. It's a very touchy topic, very picky. Like I said, the only people that the devil cannot mess with. Everyone the devil can trick. He can trick the people who pray. He can trick the people who do Hajj. He can trick the people who fast. He has all the tricks for them. But there's one category of people the devil can't mess with. And the Quran says, the devil, he says himself to Allah, he says, إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Except those slaves of yours who are sincere. Because when you're loyal to Allah, it doesn't matter what happens, you're always going to turn back to Allah. You're only going to do it for Him. That's why the person who gives charity on the day of judgment gives it with his right hand. رَجُلٌ تَصَدَّقَ بِيَمِينِهِ فَأَخْفَاهَا حَتَّى لَا تَعْلَمَ شِمَالُهُ مَا تُنْفِقُ يَمِينُهُ. He hides it in a form that the left hand doesn't even know what the right hand gave. It's just metaphoric. Meaning he gave it with such sincerity. This person, for this action, will be given a shade into the arsh of Allah. So in our life, guys, start today, do something every day to help someone only for the sake of Allah. Help someone, give something to someone, be there for someone. What did Allah say in the Quran? Those who عَيْنًا يَشْرَبُ بِهَا عِبَادُ اللَّهِ يُفَجِّرُونَهَا تَفْجِيرًا. يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. They say it very clear. We're feeding, we're helping. We don't want you to thank us. لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. We don't want you to pay us. Neither do we want you to tell us thank you. In our society, if someone didn't thank us, we're like, what? I'm never going to help this person again. Quran says that لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. إن الأبرار, these are the أبرار. These are the highest people. Not that looking around for the name and, make me part of the board, make me part of this organization. I'm only going to help. لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا. Then Allah says, فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نظرة وسرورا وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا. Allah gives a Jannah. And this ayah was revealed for Ali and Fatima radiallahu anhuma when they went through difficulty. Case closed. Number one, building sincerity. Number one, first thing we need to do is before every action, for implementation, number one, for every action, you need to verbally, not only internally, from your emotion, but verbally announce to yourself in the beginning so you can make this a habit. Why am I doing this action? When you're driving to the Halaqa, when you're driving to Salah, why am I driving to Isha? Why am I coming to the Halaqa? You need to be conscious of this. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr says, if you don't know the reward of what you're doing, you're not going to get the reward of it. You need to have faith in the reward. You need to know what the reward is too. So number one, you need to express your intention clearly. Number two, when you come to start the action, in the middle of the action, you need to revive your intention. Because while you're at the event, your intention can change. And it doesn't end there again. You finish the action and you ask yourself again why I did this action. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said in the end of the dua of Salah, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu asked, what dua should I make in the end? Allahumma inni dhantuka nafsi dhulman kathira. فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت فاغفر لي مغفرة من عندك وارحمني إنك أنت الغفور الرحيم. You make a dua for istighfar. Why do you make a dua for istighfar in Salah? Because maybe you didn't do the Salah properly. Maybe it was done for some other reason. And when it's done, don't broadcast. The real broadcast is on the day of judgment, when Allah will broadcast your actions, your good actions. Like the way we want to hide our sins, we should learn how to hide our good deeds. And if somebody praises you, a man came to the Prophet ﷺ, say, Rasulullah, a man has good deeds, but he gets praised for this world. Do we say this person is insincere? Right? A person does a lot of good deeds, and now he's being appreciated by the people. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Tilka ajalatun bushra." That has nothing to do with you being insincere. The fact is that Allah is giving you glad tidings and giving you appreciation in this dunya, Allah will appreciate it more in akhirah. That has nothing to do with it. As long as you did it for the sake of Allah. Number one, that was in the first implementation. Number two is that every action that's done, if there are people around you, whether they are happy with you, whether they're praising you, whether they're criticizing you, is that you should never leave that action if it's done for the sake of Allah. There should be consistency in the action that you're doing for the sake of Allah. Continue. Just continue. Don't stop. Don't stop. People want you to stop. Just when you don't want to do it, continue to do it. When people are saying things negative, just continue. Doing for the sake of Allah. And number three, you should always, this is really tough, you should always cry and dua, oh Allah, I've done all this, I don't know if it's going to be exciting. I don't know if it's going to be exciting. No, I have received, for example, a check from a physician, $100,000 donation, and when he was giving to me, he was crying. Not because his money was leaving, he was crying and he said to me, I don't know if Allah is excited. I looked at him and said, you're giving me $100,000. $100,000. He said, I don't know if Allah is excited. I don't know. So number 3 is always, reprimand yourself and analyze it, scrutinize yourself. Did I do it right? Make dua to Allah, Allah accept it. And that's number 3. In that number 3, you can also add, Allah, please, Allah accept it. Allah accept it. So then Allah subhanahu give us. And first things that we should start being sincere is in our worship. After belief, it should be our worship. Salah, paying our salah correctly. There's fiqh rules, there's laws. If you make intention for asr and you pray in the Dhuhr, it's not accepted. That's just not accepted. Just you have to re-pray. But doing it, asking Allah, doing it correctly for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When your intention is correct, then the action in salah will be correct also. Then you know Allah is watching you, praying for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then you will do it correct. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to be sincere and to be always grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything that we do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the situation of the hearts. He knows why we're doing things. He knows that sometimes we can't do it because we don't have the opportunity, but we want to do it. Allah gives a reward for it. Allah gives a reward for it. Sometimes you want to be at an event, but you can't. Just because you want to be there, Allah gives you a reward for it. So that's the beauty of sincerity. The sincerity has positive and negatives, but the positive part is, even if you don't do it, you get the reward for it. That's why some scholars say the intention, sometimes making the intention is safer than doing the action. Because when you're making the intention, no one knows about it. But when you do the action, that's when you're scrutinized. You understand? Did you understand what I said? When you make the intention, I want to give sadaqah, you get reward for that intention. But when you're giving the sadaqah, it can be contaminated because people are watching you. So the intention was pure, but the giving at the moment was tested. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again give us a reward to make us amongst the mukhlisin, ibadullah al-mukhlasin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us those who on the day of judgment are raised with the mukhlasin. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us those people who from the sincere individuals who remove fitna. Remove fitna. Because fitna and difficulties in these trials are removed by fitna. يَخْرُجُونَ مِنْ كُلِّ خَطْرَةٍ مُظْلِمًا. Allah's Rasul said these mukhlisin will remove darkness. May Allah make us amongst the people who remove darkness. May Allah make us amongst those people that when we start an action, and Allah puts His support behind it, His mashiyah, His ma'iyah is with us, that we're able to do this action solely for the purpose of Allah, and it has an everlasting effect, not only this dunya, in reward of it in akhirah. And inshallah, in our life, we'll be part of a project which was started with sincerity and ended with sincerity, inshallah. And if we don't become part of a project, may Allah make us amongst those who invent something sincerely that can help the ummah, that can support the ummah. And inshallah, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all of our shortcomings. Subhanallah, bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. You have any questions about this topic? Yes.
What were the 2 ingredients for Amal Salih?
Amal Salih, number 1 is ikhlas. Number 2 was? Who remembers? Huh? Doing it correctly. Tariqah. The mode and the motive. The mode has to be correct, and the motive has to be correct. For Amal Salih. Something to be accepted. Yes.
And what was the area called in Jahannam?
It's called Jubbul Huzn. Jubbul Huzn. Allahumma inna na'udhu bika min Jubbul Huzn. Qulu ameen. Anyone have any more questions? From the girls? I have something to tell you. Next week, our Halaqa will be in Grand Lake at the Gayyar's house. So we're going to take Flint and Grand Lake and have it in GB, and inshallah next month we'll have it in also GB hopefully. I think Grand Lake deserves to have us over, Yes. Tomorrow, please, tomorrow is a joint session, a really cool topic. What I'm doing tomorrow is I'm going through the benefits of prayer. Like dealing with time management, dealing with consistency. So salah is that, the topic is salah, the cure to all illness. Psychological, spiritual, and physical. Salah is that type of worship. It encompasses everything. Like, for example, you're dealing with arrogance. When you're reminding Allah Akbar, you're nothing. Allah is the greatest. So breaking down salah, the unity in the rows, the wisdom behind the qibla, all of this, the wisdom behind following the imam. One imam, why can't we have 2 imams? You know, if a person can't follow Imam, how is he going to follow Imam Mahdi when he comes? He wants to do his own thing. So all of this leadership, following the wisdoms behind Salah. Inshallah, I go into detail with Surah Fatiha. Most likely, I'm going to be focusing on Surah Fatiha and the wisdoms in Surah Fatiha and Salah and the movements of Salah. So I request all of you, please come and bring your families and share the khair. For anyone that comes because you told them, you get the reward for them coming. Jazakumullah khair. Anyone wants a book, they can purchase one for $20. If you think you don't need one, it's good for you. You can memorize the lectures, or you can take them on your private notes. Anyone interested? They're right here. Just if you want from the girls' side, you can ask Shireen. If the boys, you can tell me inshallah. If someone hasn't paid yet, you are due.